welcome to Shell Point Today for Monday, September 26th. I'm Mary Kay Grimaldi.
And I'm Rich Nation. Thanks for joining us. Coming up on today's show, Melody Desilets of the Legacy Foundation will read a storybook to her son about the Gulf Coast Model Railroad. And Teri Kollath will find out about the angry voter in the 2016 presidential election.
But first, we want to remind you about tomorrow's Library Book Talk in the Social Center on the island. Resident Bill Saunders of King's Crown has reviewed more than 15 books over the years and has chosen something special for this presentation. There will be time for questions and light refreshments will be served as well. The book talk begins at 2:15 p.m. in the Social Center.
On Wednesday of this week, audiologist Jack Adams will deliver a special presentation entitled, Finally, New Breakthrough Hearing Aid Technology. Come hear what he has to say about the latest technology that compensates for problems that have kept hearing aid users from hearing well in certain listening environments. The presentation begins at 2:15 p.m. in the Social Center on Wednesday.
This week, through Saturday, October 1st, the Community Thrift Store is the place to go for a whopping 75% off on all furniture, area rugs, and lamps. It's a great place to get that final piece of decor for your living room at a huge savings. The thrift store is open tomorrow through Saturday from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m.
You know, it won't be long before the trains begin to roll down the tracks at the Gulf Coast Model Railroad down in the Island Creativity Tunnel. Melody Desilets of the Legacy Foundation spent some time with her 4-year-old son recently to teach him about the real Florida railroads from which the model train room is based.
Bradley, Mama has a new book to read to you. I know you love cars and you love trucks, but this one is all about trains. It's called The Gulf Coast Model Railroad History, and it was written by Marilyn Horvath and edited by Phyllis Ingalls. So you ready to read all about it? Okay, blow your train horn, let's go! Good job. Once upon a time, there were no trains in Florida. Then 2 men moved here, and they love trains just like you. I bet they played with them when they were little boys. And how old are you? How many is that?
4.
Right. Well, guess what? When they grew up, they came to Florida. Look. And they built railroad tracks for the trains. And those train engines blew whistles just like yours. Blow your whistle. Whoa! The engines pulled boxcars that carried orange juice, food, and people too. Lots of people came to Florida because now they had trains to bring them here. Now, one of those men who built the railroad tracks decided to take the trains on the tracks all the way to Key West. Let me show you where it is in the picture in the book. Now, those train tracks went over a bridge. What is underneath a bridge?
Fish and sharks.
Fish and sharks.
And whales.
And whales. And lots of water, right? Look at this. These little houses and the people. We have to go in and see the trains on the tracks and the cars driving on the roads and the airplanes in the sky. Now this, Bradley, is a very important person. This is Millie, and she'll sit at the ticket counter and give you a ticket. What do you say when she gives you your ticket?
Thank you.
Right. And this is the conductor, Pete. He's a very nice man. He's very important for train operation. What do you say to Conductor Pete?
Hi.
Right. Now give him your friendliest smile and a big wave. Good job. So Bradley, you ready to go see the trains in the book?
Yes!
All right, blow your whistle one more time. Let's go! Whoa!
Nice to meet you.
You want to go see the train?
Yes.
Well, see Millie to get your ticket.
Okay.
Hi, young man. What is your name?
Bradley Morrison.
Bradley, what a very nice name, and you're such a handsome little boy. Are you here to see the trains today? And you're here with your mommy to see them. I have a surprise for you. I have tickets for you and your mommy, and even though we're closed today, you can come back on October 3rd, and I have another ticket for that day. So here's one for you, one for your mommy, and one for you for October 3rd.
Wow, it's amazing.
I know, let's look. Look at how big it is.
It looks like a huge chain set. Come see us in October.
Wayne Swanson of Turbin taught American politics for 32 years and is bringing his knowledge and perspective on the upcoming presidential election to the Academy of Lifelong Learning. Implications of the angry voter and the 2016 election is the topic of Tuesday's class in the Grand Cypress Room of the Woodlands. Teri Kollath visits with Wayne now for more insights on the class, where he will discuss the turmoil in the Republican Party and why Donald Trump was able to secure the nomination.
Hi, I'm Teri Kollath. I'm here today with Wayne Swanson of Turbin. And Wayne is doing 2 classes in our Academy of Lifelong Learning. Today we're talking about class number 1, the implications of the angry voter and the 2016 presidential election. Thank you for joining me, Wayne.
Glad to be here.
There are some angry voters, aren't there?
There are some angry voters. I hope that there aren't too many of them at Shell Point, but I know there are a lot of frustrated voters at Shell Point.
Sure.
Just walking around here and without even asking them, when I tell them what my background was, they say, I just am having a difficult time making up my mind who to vote for. And it's been amazing to me how most everybody basically gives me the same response.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a minute about your background.
Sure.
You gave me a call before you even moved to Shell Point and told me you were coming. And you're a retired political science professor.
I taught 32 years at Connecticut College in New London, Connecticut, which is a small private liberal arts college. And had a great time there, an exciting time there. And so the reason I called you was that I haven't done this in a while. And I thought, well, this is a good opportunity to see if I can still do this.
I think you're going to find you'll have a great time here too, and it'll be very exciting, especially with the topic you've chosen.
Yeah.
We're just delighted, Wayne, to look with an expert in political science at some of the things that are happening in this most unusual election.
That's right.
You're going to share with our residents a perspective of how we got to where we are?
Yes. I think one of the most interesting questions is how Donald Trump actually got the nomination. When he first declared his candidacy, there weren't too many people, including myself, that thought he had really any chance of actually getting the Republican nomination. But here we are, he did, and I think we need to look back at that and see how he did it. And I think I've identified, 4 factors, which I'll develop in my talk, which help to explain that.
And then we have our other candidate, Hillary
That's right.
Clinton.
Now, that was different. I think everybody assumed that Hillary would get the nomination all along, but then Bernie Sanders appeared, and it revealed some cracks in the Democratic Party.
Right.
And both of these divisions within each party are not going to go away after this election. There are going to be questions to resolve. What effect are the Trump voters going to have on the party system? If he loses, for example, that leaves a political vacuum out there. And I think both parties are going to have to respond to the angry voter and what to do about them.
Well, it occurs to me that even in my small little world of family, friends, coworkers, not everybody can be put into 2 boxes. Totally Democratic or totally Republican. Doesn't have a big effect on what we're experiencing.
It does. It creates a lot of independent voters, and it creates a lot of voters who are accustomed to splitting their ticket, which is kind of new, relatively new in American politics. In fact, one of the first things I want to talk about is the decline of a strong party system where we used to have people who were Democrats, or Republicans. That's no longer true. There has been structural changes and voting behavior changes that have caused voters to be more free. And I think the media, as it has increased its role in elections, is partly responsible for that, because voters can get a lot of information from television.
That is so true. And we can get a lot of information that's quote information and not necessarily true.
That's true. You have to be very careful.
You
Yes.
do
You
have
have to be very careful, and you have to be astute in terms of looking at both sides of the question, raising questions. And I hope one of the things that we can do, the talk is going to be nonpartisan. I'm going to leave time for questions and discussions, and I hope that the residents will get a chance to raise some of their concerns, and we can banter them back and forth.
Sometimes there is time for that. I know you have a lot of information to share with us. And there are even more questions when we talk about angry voters. And I'd like you to expand a little bit more on that. Is this really unusual that there isn't a candidate that appeals to everyone in the party? Is that very unusual?
It's not totally unusual, but it's unusual to the extent that it exists today, particularly in the Republican Party. I mean, you have most of the Republican establishment now are coming out and saying they may not even vote for Donald Trump. And it's I don't want to give away all of my talk,
Sure.
but I would say that the fact that Congress, for example, hasn't been responding to national issues has created this kind of anger with basically to start with within the Republican Party.
Sure, I mean, we elect them. We expect them to go and do the work of running our country. And it's not necessarily being angry at a presidential candidate.
No. It's the system and its inability to respond. I have a good a little blurb which is going to define the angry voter, and it'll give residents a chance maybe to think, well, where do I fit into this in any way? And maybe partially they do, and maybe partially they don't. But it's going to take some response, particularly, on the question of immigration, for example.
Sure.
Nothing was done. Deadlock in Congress. It's my own view that if something had been done on that, if we'd come to some kind of a compromise resolution, that would have eased the whole process in this election. But it's not only immigration, it's other things as well.
Sure, I mean, you and I have to compromise in our daily life,
Sure.
right? And we
Congress
that.
used to do that pretty well,
Yeah.
but particularly in the last 2 years, there's been no successful effort to do that. I'm going to say, people, if I were down there on immigration, I would take all the parties that are involved and I would lock them in a room, and I wouldn't let them out until they came up with something that all could reasonably accept.
Kind of jury duty.
Right.
Thank you. Well, we are just delighted, not only that you've moved to Shell Point, and we hope you're as excited and glad to be here as you were in your previous career.
Yes.
And thank you for sharing with us.
Okay.
You'll probably want to join us. If there's room, sign up at either service desk as we talk about the implications of the angry voter and the 2016 presidential election with our own new resident, Wayne Swanson of Turbin.
And now it's time to cover all of today's happenings, Academy news, menus, and Village Church connections, right after this Listening to the Words preview from David Hallenstein.
Have you ever said, I know William Shakespeare wrote a lot of great plays, but I have a hard time figuring out what his characters are saying? Well, I guarantee you, you will understand those of his words that are highlighted in this week's Listening to the Words program, which commemorates the 400th anniversary year of Shakespeare's passing. We'll hear a Southwest Florida writer's take on the importance of speaking the speech so that you are all well understood. We'll also hear examples of the many Shakespearean phrases that we are still using, such as, "It's Greek to me," and "Clothes make the man." And one I had never heard before. Some 400 years before Shell Point was created, one of his characters said, "For you and I are past our dancing days." You'll also hear a couple short poems by a British friend of mine who, not surprisingly, just loves Shakespeare. And you can have fun with a piece I have written titled, "What's in a Name?" And finally, listen to Shell Pointer Victor Oliver read about an ironically placed sprig of garlic. David Howenstein promising all that and more on this week's 30-minute program that runs twice each hour every day this week on ShellPoint's Channel 12 and can be heard by pointing your browser to www.shellpoint.net/listening. And thank you for listening to the words.
Hello and welcome to the Happening segment of ShellPoint TV. I'm Bev Chandley.
And I'm Dora Robbins.
And we're going to go over the activities that we offer for you here today at ShellPoint. At 8 o'clock today, we start with men's round robin tennis down at the Woodlands. And back at the island, we have pickleball also at 8 o'clock. At 8:45, we have virtual bowling at the Resident Activities Center. Also at the Resident Activity Center, we have billiards at 9:15. And then we have 9:15 lollygaggers, paddlers. They're heading out from the kayak storage this morning. And our last 9:15 activity is pottery with instruction available down in the pottery studio. Men's match play tennis is at 10 o'clock down at the Woodlands. Our Suzy Q boat heads to Matanzas on the Bay at 10 o'clock. And at 10:30, we have the Disciple Men's Bible Study Group in the game room of the Woodlands. Table tennis with the playing clinic will be in the Tarpon Room at 10:45. And that's our last activity for the morning. Here's Dora with the afternoon lineup.
This afternoon we're going to start out at 12 o'clock with Mahjong, and that's at the Sable Room at the Woodlands. We have Samba at 1:15, and that's at the Resident Activity Center. At 1:15 we have Tone Chimes, and that's the Osprey Room on the island. At 1:45 we have Balance and Mobility Advanced. You do need to sign up for that, and that's at the Health Club on the island. At 2 o'clock we have the Beady-Eyed Bead Club. That's at the Oak Room at the Woodlands. We have Pilates Stretch at the Health Club on the island at 3 o'clock. At 3:15 we have the Shell Point Singers rehearsal, and that's at the church. We have Singles Table at the Crystal at 5 o'clock. That's at the Crystal Dining Room. And at 6:30 we have Duplicate Bridge in the game room at the Woodlands. Our last activity for tonight is movie night. It's Big Country. It's a 1958 film, and that's at the Social Center on the island. Thanks, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
Hello, I'm Teri Kollath with your Academy information for Monday, the 26th of September. At 9 o'clock, our Writers' Workshop continues in the Sable Room at the Woodlands. At 10:15, our Apple iPad What Are the Basics class will take place in the Manatee Room on the island. And at 10:30, Anatomy of Words welcomes everyone to the Oak Room at the Woodlands. Let me tell you about a couple new classes coming tomorrow. We have The Implication of the Angry Voter and the 2016 presidential elections, and that's with Wayne Swanson. And we have Ancient Persia and Alexander, Session 2, where we focus on how the young Macedonian king conquered the known world, with Professor Adrian Keir.
Menus for Monday. In the Crystal Room, the Crystal Platter is General Tso's chicken with jasmine rice and stir-fry vegetables. The dinner special is Old Home Cooking Night for $13.95. The soup of the day is vegetarian chili. In the Island Cafe, the sandwich special is a roasted turkey and provolone sandwich on focaccia bread with sweet potato fries for $7.95. All menus are available 24 hours a day at www.shellpoint.net.
Hi, welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm Andy Hawkins, the senior pastor of the Village Church, and I'm here with Teri Kollath, and you're very familiar with Teri because Teri directs the Academy of Lifelong Learning here at Shell Point, and a lot of times we end up collaborating on programs, and we have one such program that I think is very timely. You would say it would be timely, wouldn't you? Tell us a little bit about what's happening on the 28th.
Well, I would like to just share with the community that in this time when we're all focused on politics, we've been so blessed in this community to have 3 residents, 2 political science, 2 retired political science professors, another resident who's a mathematician, and also to have our own senior pastor who is willing to jump in and really kind of refocus us all on what's the bottom line here? And we decided, with your wisdom, to call it a biblical view of church and state.
That's right. Pretty hot topic, isn't it? Yeah, that's right.
Very hot topic.
People, it's always an issue, and obviously the sort of the political sort of wisdom of the day, and when I say day, I'm talking about our generation, is very much concerned about how the church relates to the state and whether or not there can be certain types of influence or not in various kinds of ways. And I think it's important that we, first of all, celebrate the fact that we live in a country where there's religious freedom, and recognize that all the different points of view can be heard in our country in legitimate kinds of ways, and how unusual that is across the world. That simply doesn't happen very often. And at the same time, there is a sense in which there is a movement, I think, to try to quelch religious views as being legitimate elements in sort of the public square discussions of values, of policy, things along those lines. And that would be a great shame to lose that kind of perspective. Our country has a rich history with respect to the Judeo-Christian sort of foundation and influences over the years. The values that we enjoy have emerged in many ways from the legal system that emerged from the Old Testament law and all those kinds of things. And the Bible does weigh in on these kinds of issues and helps us understand what responsibilities the state has. And the state is not the church, so the state has certain responsibilities under God that the church really doesn't have. But then the church has certain responsibilities as well, and it's not to be the state. At the same time, individual Christians certainly have their points of view and have an opportunity in our system to express those kinds of things. So we're going to explore the biblical foundations for church and state, and I think it'll be a wonderfully balanced way to understand what our responsibilities are in a culture like ours.
Absolutely. And I've always been taught that with our freedoms, our rights, comes a deep responsibility. And so I think especially now, I'm so grateful for all of you, to just giving these presentations that focus us on the basics, taking away the emotions, taking away the need to try to convince each other of something, and instead look at what this is all built upon.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know it can be a kind of a controversial thing, but we hope to sort of remove the blinders and make sure that we see things in realistic terms. Historically, it's always been pretty much a disaster when the church has tried to be the state. And it's always been a disaster when the state has tried to sort of overwhelm and quelch the church. And so there needs to be a balance between those two elements, those two institutions, which are both ordained by God, and in understanding how they're supposed to function effectively in their own domains. And so we're going to explore that and see what the Bible has to say about it.
Balance sounds so good now, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
As always, we're grateful for you to give the presentations that we look forward to, Pastor Andy.
Well, thank you, Terry, for joining me on Village Church Connections as we shared about this particular event, which is going to take place this Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the Grand Cypress Room. And we'll look forward to the biblical view of church and state. And we hope that you'll join us for that and for the many other activities that we share here in the Shell Point community together. Blessings to all of you. We hope to see you soon.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of Shell Point Today for Monday, September 26th. On tomorrow's show, we'll have another Find Mark Minute from the financial sector about the importance of designating beneficiaries. Beth Crenshaw will find out about this year's Bakeless Bake Sale, and Pastor Andy Hawkins will discuss his Academy class on the biblical view of church and state. We hope to see you then. I'm Mary Kay Grimaldi.
And I'm Rich Nation. Thanks for watching. Goodbye, everyone.